Happy holidays, everyone. Thanks for rocking with me all year and following my journey. I'm really excited about this next episode. I sat down with one of my oldest friends. I've actually known this guy since I was about 4 years old. And it was a lot of fun to get to interview someone I care so deeply about. His name is Drew Hall. His story is intense, but it is inspiring. And he talks about everything from his meteoric rise to the top of leaderboards in software sales, to his struggle with addictions, and also how he's navigated life with a bipolar diagnosis and some of the extreme highs and mania that comes with that, some of the darker lows and depression. And he's a wise soul. He's a good man. So I think you'll enjoy the episode. But before we get there, I do want to quickly highlight two things. One, if you resonate with Drew's story, he's actually launching a Substack where he'll get more into the depths of his journey with mental health and addiction and his kind of views on life. So I'll put that in the show notes. And then second, I did want to make sure that you knew what our partners at Dreamfuel are doing. They've been a huge proponent of what we've been doing since the very beginning, and they are doing something special for January. So they are going to give any wake-up call listener that wants to take them up on it a free team coaching session. It's not just one-to-one. They're actually going to do a customized guided visualization and breath work for your entire team or your entire organization. And typically they charge at least $2,500 for something like this. But through our partnership, it is going to be completely free. So I would run, not walk, to take them up on it. They can't, of course, do it for everyone. They don't have hundreds of coaches. We've got more of like SEAL Team 6 of really incredible coaches. So we'll be done on a first come, first served basis. You can go to dreamfuel.com/wakeupcall to secure your free team session. It's a perfect thing to do for your RKO or company-wide kickoff to get everyone super locked in and focused on their 2026 goals. But that's it. I hope you enjoy this conversation with my dear friend, Drew. Mr. Drew Hall, what's up, brother?
Mr. Scott Stanley Barker. I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good, man. And that might give it away of how well I know this next guest, because I don't think most of my guests know my middle name. But super quickly for the listeners, if you've been following along since the beginning of kind of the wake up call journey, whether it was on LinkedIn or through my newsletter or on this podcast, you have likely heard me reference a very dear friend that I've been traveling around with. And that friend is Drew, who we're chatting with today. And I think these conversations have been kind of a long time coming. We've been talking about this for a while, and we're finally making it happen. You want to maybe tell the listeners like where we are, what we've been up to, at least in this little chapter?
Yeah, currently we're down the road from each other in our places in Rishikesh, India, where we've been for over a month now, largely sitting in ashrams, sitting with ourselves and whatever else comes through. Before that, Nepal, where we were trekking Everest and hanging out, prior to Sri Lanka, Thailand, and Bali. So it's been about 6 months now.
Mm-hmm. Time flies, man. I don't know about you, but it feels like kind of a blink of an eye, and we're already 6 months into this journey. I guess there's so many directions. This is so interesting, like interviewing someone I know so deeply. It's actually a funny thing, because like all these questions that usually I'm naturally dive into, there's like layers to all of it. But let's start it at the beginning. So you and I have known each other since we were about 4 or 5. So like kindergarten, Mrs. Pink's kindergarten
Mrs.
class we
Pink.
were in together. God
Yeah.
bless her. What an
The
incredible,
best
incredible lady.
kindergarten teacher you could ask for. Yeah.
Yeah. She was like a movie character kindergarten teacher, you know?
Totally. We were
Um,
lucky, man.
we were, and we've been close ever since. There's been periods in our life, for months or years where we're not quite as close, but I think maintaining a friendship for almost 30 years is pretty incredible, man. And I feel very honored. And when this sort of came together, somewhat last minute, that you were, going to join me on this journey. Now looking back, like I can't think of it any other way. And I guess where were you at in your life? Because it's pretty rare that someone sees that someone else is doing something drastic, and you're like, well, I'm going to do that as well. Like, where were you at in your life?
Yeah, I was at a place where I had pretty well wrapped up knowing everything I didn't want to do. Wrapping up my previous career, um, you know, relationship, had been through sort of uh, I guess most of the grieving process of that. Feeling like my biggest commitment at the time was a lease agreement for my apartment. That was my big responsibility. So I was in a place where I was ready to fly, and um, honestly, I wasn't in a very good place. Um, and just there was tons of uncertainty, and I wasn't 100% sure what the next step was going to be. And I was you know different efforts in different areas, career wise, nothing was really grabbing me. And it was actually when I talked to you and you told me about your plans, and you wrote your post on LinkedIn about what you were going to be doing. And I was, you know, your plan had been in my head for years. I'd always had something calling me to India, particularly, but the East at large. And I read it and I was like, he's doing it. He's doing the thing. And pretty quickly, I figured, hey, let's do it too. And it made all the sense in the world, um, for me to act. And it was a pretty quick conversation between you and I, because I was kind of thinking, well, is this something he should be doing on his own? Is it going to serve either of us to do this together? And I didn't know what the right answer was, but you act, and here we are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a pretty quick hell yes from my end for sure.
Yeah.
It's one of those things. I think people can maybe relate to this when you're um, really really close with someone. You kind of know your boundaries, and you can almost get the feeling of being alone even with that person, because that person doesn't like require any mask or any energy. It's like being with family. And so, although we've been together, I think there's been times when we've separated, and also even when we've been together, I think we've been able to grow and reflect almost as if we were alone, because we're not having to put on extra energy towards a relationship with someone that maybe you don't know as well. So you have to expend extra, thought and energy.
And that's totally it. And I think that it's not having to perform, or
Mm.
even just not performing almost subconsciously. I for a large portion of my life, I thought I had to be this very sort of extroverted, center of attention, lead the conversation guy. I realized that wasn't me, and the pendulum swung the other way to, oh wow, I'm actually quite introverted, and I get my energy, in solitude and from myself, and I'm actually quite exhausted when I'm, around other people. But now I again, I don't know, because it's like, is it the other people, or is it me feeling the need to perform around other people all the time, and that's what's exhausting me because I do get energy from people as well, but certainly somebody like yourself who it's like looking in the mirror sometimes, and the extent of relationship that we have, um, it's about as close as it gets to being in solitude with the beauty of being connected.
I can certainly relate to performing for most of my life. I don't know what was in the teachings. Maybe Miss Pink did it, dude. Maybe there was something in
Maybe it was Miss
her
Pink.
kindergarten. Yeah, we're gonna
She
blame
put on a
Mrs.
heck of
Pink.
a performance, man. I'll tell you that.
She did. She did. I wrote this other day of this like horrific loop I got caught in of like perform, escape, sleep, perform, escape, sleep. For years, that's what I would do. I would get up, psych myself up, go put on VC performance or friend performance or sales guy performance, and then escape that character as much as I could through alcohol, TV, gambling, whatever it is, and then try and find a way to sleep, which was very, very difficult for me. And I I'd love to dive into your story, and I'll let you pick it up from wherever you want to start. Um, but I think you have, and one of the most beautiful, chaotic, intense stories of resilience out there. Um, and many of these practices that we find, whether it's meditation or it is breath work or it is different forms of movement, we find them to try and optimize ourselves or to, um, typically it's like optimize. You found these practices quite early on just to try and survive, essentially. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah,
And perform,
pick it
for
up
sure.
wherever you want
Yeah.
and perform. Yeah.
Yeah. So first of all, I'll start by saying that my story is that it's a story, and it's my perspective on on what's happened throughout my life. And memory's a funny thing, right? But this is, I have spent a lot of time over the last 7 years dissecting that and going back and understanding, what happened and how I contributed to it and whatnot. It's been pretty exhaustive, so I'll express it as honestly as I remember. Um, hmm,
Story.
well, as we've pointed out, we both grew up together in a beautiful little part of North Vancouver. Lynn Valley, had my childhood was a lot of sports. It was a lot of friends. It was a lot of, I was doing well in school, and it, uh, you know, pretty idyllic, in the way that I remember it, and close with family, uh, and enjoyed life. You know, um, I think as much as one would hope, you can. I would say that things when I was 15, that's when the biggest uh, pivot happened for me. And that was when I remember I was outside of my warehouse job in the summer, and sitting in my Corolla at lunch, hiding away and Googling, how do I talk to people? And I'd later recognized that being um, depression. And I didn't know what was going on. There were these two really pretty girls that I worked with in the warehouse, and I was terrified of them. And I thought that's a curious thing because this is something that would usually be great. Um, and thus began, this pattern of almost feeling like there was an off and an on switch in my head. That at times I would be Drew as I imagined Drew as and as I enjoyed Drew, and somebody that loved connecting with people and being charismatic and yada yada yada. Um, and then the seemingly the opposite, somebody that was terrified of people, somebody that was scared all the time, scared of everything. And I couldn't reconcile that in myself. I mean, for the next 4 years, you don't know what's going on when you're in that. Um, and I thought I had some form of rare brain cancer. I thought I was the only person that this was happening to. And it wasn't until I was 19 years old, I was, away at university back in for winter break, and I completely broke down and to my folks, and I don't know what's going on. And I have a father that was diagnosed bipolar, and so it wasn't even like this was a hard thing for me to bring up in my family. I know that's something that's a challenge for people, and that wasn't the case with me. But that'll show you, how difficult it is to understand and have awareness of what's going on. And I had just been fighting and clawing to keep my life going, and from an outward perspective, it was, okay, Drew, you're going to go to business school. You get good grades, you're going to go to business school. And my dad and my brother did. I was like, okay, I'm going to business school. And so I did that, and trying to, get the grades and have the social life and have the friends, but continuing to shut down, and then just scratching and clawing to keep that going. While then coming back out and loving this life, and it was a real oscillation between those two experiences, and has been, honestly, for I'm 33 now, and it's changed, but it's still been a fairly consistent in my experience, and it's been the greatest bane and the greatest gift of my existence, to go through that, and to use it as a tool and an opportunity to grow and to learn and understand who it is that I am. So, do you want me to keep going into everything, or do you have any
Just
questions
keep
that come
going.
up?
Yeah,
Okay,
keep rolling.
cool.
I'll have questions, but
Yeah,
let's get through it.
let it flow. Okay.
Mhm.
So as I'm trying to reconcile and feel my way through this experience, I became pretty, escape was something for me that provided a lot of relief. And, when I was in university, I'm running a painting franchise, and, that's when I get my DUI, and things start to go a little haywire. And, the signs start to come up. My godfather pulls me aside and says, "Hey, Drew, you got to be careful with this drinking thing, and, you're kind of acting out." And, so that was a way for me to deal, to survive, and a way for me to feel okay. Yeah, at times that I didn't feel okay, at times that I did feel okay, I wanted to feel more okay. And so, drinking became a problem for me, drugs became a problem for me, and that really ramped up the whirlwind of my experience in terms of, I would get severely depressed, and then I would always be able to look back and see, oh, that started with me going out for drinks with the guys, and then it escalated and turned into something, and I would emerge from that bender, whatever it was, remorseful and very depressed. And that went on for years. But again, scratching and clawing to, keep the outside um, as it was supposed to be. So, after doing my BCom, going and working for Xerox, where I made good decisions in my early career. I could have gone and worked for, and had been a rep selling beer, or I could go and do the less glamorous route, but go to a great sales training company like Xerox and sell photocopiers. And I did that. And then rather than go up the corporate chain at Xerox, I came and joined you at the tech company in business development. Everybody at Xerox is going, "Oh, you're making a terrible decision," and but I didn't, and it could have gone into dental sales or something and made a lot better money and gotten the car and gotten this and that. But you go and I did the BER thing and in SaaS, and then found my
We're
way
damn good at it.
into. we had a few moves, yeah, and then found my way into an AE position. A couple years after starting in business development, and that was my God, was my career, my success. That was what I had faith in. I didn't have any other semblance of intentional spirituality in my life. But that was what I worshipped. That was what I had faith in. Was I'm going to be this successful guy that works in tech, that's in Yale Town, that goes to the bars, and he's good with the ladies, and has a bunch of friends, and that was the path that I really wanted. And but my mental health and my substance abuse continued to get worse and worse. And it was actually when that really started to show up in my career, was what prompted me to smarten up. And it was, I think I was 26 and I was in a new AE role, and just going through it, man. And it's hard enough to run a demo and have an articulate, intelligent, helpful conversation with a technology and a group of people as it is, let alone when I'm terrified to brush my teeth or to order a coffee because I'll have to chat with the barista. It's tough to keep showing up when you're doing that. And eventually I didn't. So I was in such dread, and I went out and same old same, got loaded, and didn't show up to work for like 3 weeks. I was just hiding away. I went back to my parents' place. They were out of the country, and I just locked myself in a room with Stuart, with my cat. And I thought that I thought the world had moved on without me, and I was done. And because this had now punctured, I was going to lose my job. The show was over, and I was having really dark thoughts, but procrastinating those, and I'll get to that. I can't do it right now. And fortunately, at that point, I had been, I knew it was a problem, and I had participated in recovery 12-step programs and stuff prior to that. But this was when I really, okay, we have to go all in on this. And fortunately, I made a phone call out of that suffering, and just said, I need help, man. And the guy on the other end of the line is still a good friend of mine today. And he goes, "Oh, wow, this is so great. Wow, this is going to be such a beautiful part of your story." And I go, "Kev, listen, man, you don't get it. It's over. I'm done. That's the curtain. Draw it out." And he just goes, "Listen, Drew, where are you?" Comes and picks me up, and I just followed him like a little puppy dog for the next couple of weeks, engaging in life, terrified, absolutely terrified to do so, but just one foot in front of the other. And, little by little, bit by bit, things started to improve, and I started to feel okay. And all the fires in my life that I was so focused on, every seemingly bankrupt in every area, emotionally, psychologically, physically, mentally, spiritually, the whole bit. All of a sudden my perspective starts to change, and it's not so bad. So I thought, hey, I found it. Here we go. Here's the silver bullet. It's sobriety. I'm not going to get depressed anymore. And 4 months into my sobriety, it comes back, and the pattern continues. And uh, and but I had tools now, and I could go in and, I worked the 12 steps vigorously and went through all the stuff that I had done, all the stuff that I resented, all my fears, all of my limiting beliefs, the defective ways that those would show up in my life. And I, to the best of my ability, got through a lot of that stuff, and that gave me a lot of freedom, and then became a bit of a skeleton for me that now I can go out, and therapy can actually be helpful for me because I'm actually going to be honest with them. I tried therapy before, but I just, you tell them what they want to hear and whatnot, and, and try to get out of there, right? And that's, I guess, another a big angle is that, I was medicated beginning with antidepressants when I was 19. And that continued on for about 13 years, working with a wonderful psychiatrist, bless her heart. And we were trying everything, every SSRI, SNRI, mood stabilizer, antipsychotic, anticonvulsant, stimulant, and so I get slapped with the treatment resistant depression because something might work for a little bit, but then it doesn't, and so doing that route as well, that was, you think you find the answer in something again because, hey, this antidepressant worked and great, and everything's going to be okay, and I've unlocked the key. I'm looking for all these keys in my life, to be able to feel okay, and they might work for a bit, and then they sort of don't. So I mean, over that, since I was about 19, that was the problem that I needed to solve in my life, was not suffering so much, with the depression, with the anxiety and the suicidal ideation that rode with that. And then, hypomanic episodes that would really kind of blow things up externally. I was diagnosed bipolar when I was 25, and really committing myself to doing everything that I could to be okay. And that covers the basics like sleep, exercise, nutrition, got into the biohacking thing, satellites and infrared and pressure mats and sauna and a cold plunge in my apartment, Eastern
Literally
practices.
beside
like
your bed.
Really,
A cold plunge.
beside my bed.
One of those like inflatable cold plunges, for sure not supposed to be in your like 14th floor apartments, is right there. I gotta call that out. That was wow. That's all
Well,
right.
there were days that I had to literally drag myself from the bed into the cold plunge so that I could, make an effort at the day. So I figured, I'd lower the
Friction
effort to get in there. The
makes
friction.
sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, and, a lot, yeah, like dialing in a morning routine, like, okay, get up immediately in the cold plunge, and then we're doing holotropic breath work, and then we're meditating, and then we're doing prayer in the sauna, and then we're going to start our day. And certainly the biggest component of that was to be okay, but also a big component of that was to perform as well, because then all of a sudden, if I couldn't perform right, then I'm not okay. And so doing things for the right and the wrong reasons, as we do, but really doing my best. And different therapies, all these different modalities, IFS and trauma therapy really being what's resonated and stuck with me. Subconscious rewriting and reprogramming, holistic and Eastern practitioners like a doctor of traditional Chinese medicine, naturopaths, GP, my psychiatrist, sobriety and the 12 steps, the bleeding edge stuff like ketamine therapy and plant medicine, and last resort stuff like ECT, like electroconvulsive therapy. I was flying over the cuckoo's nest, man. And that's that one's tough, but trying. And I think that the efforts that I went to might explain that the severity of my experience, and how I viewed the extent of my own suffering, because people as well, they're like, all of a sudden, as I'm getting lost in substance abuse and stuff like that, I don't recognize myself anymore, man. Like I can't look in the mirror. I don't know who this guy is. Um, I couldn't reconcile it with who I thought I would be and who I was told I would be, good kid, um, that did well and had a bright outlook and kept, uh, seemingly not living up to my potential. Um, and, you know, yeah, that got hard. Um, and people would, and then I get sober and I'm doing all this stuff to try to help myself. And the point that I want to make here is that people are, oh wow, Drew's, he's been sober for X amount of years and he's helping all these guys and really working on himself and what a great guy. And I'm saying thank you. Um, Not doing it because I'm a good guy, doing it because I'm trying to survive, and trying to feel okay.
Thanks for sharing that, man. It's still hard to like hear sometimes as someone who loves and cares about you. And I think one of the hardest things were those periods where there was no advice I could possibly give because you were doing all of the right things and everything that you're told to do, you were doing and wasn't really working sometimes. Um, and I think when people, and then other times it would, I think when people think of someone going through this struggle that you were going through, whether it's battling with bipolar or trying to juggle that with getting sober, they're like, oh, that person must not be able to function. And internally you feel like you can't function, but outwardly there were periods, you would come in and you'd get a new job at a really hot like tech company and you would blow everything out of the water, right? You were like, you kind of had this habit of sort of being able to get it together and then just expelling this incredible amount of energy that would make you like number one on the leaderboard in a matter of like months. And that kind of played out a couple of times. Walk us through that a little bit because I think it's important to hear that even through struggle can do really incredible things.
Yeah, I remember being at, um, yeah, great job, super exciting company bringing generative AI to the market before open AI, and I'm the second rep hired there, and I'm in the big leagues now, right? I was up in tucked away in Vancouver and AAA ball, let's say, and then now I'm out of San Francisco and flying down there and an amazing company. I'm so impressed with everybody that's there. I'm looking around, I'm like, oh, this is all right. I'm in the big leagues now, and being halfway through my first full quarter as a rep, and also externally having everything else just roses. I've just moved into a beautiful new place that I love. I'm looking out at the water as I'm working in Vancouver. I'm have an amazing partner. All of these things that this life that I thought would solve my problems, and this amazing job, and everything's going great, and the money, and da da da, and these things that I would tell myself, when I was first getting sober, that you've blown it. This is never going to happen. All of a sudden, all of it's happening, and I'm sitting there, and I remember getting the DocuSign that another deal had closed, and just being crushed. Not with that, but just not even phasing me. Oh, great, but doesn't matter because I'm suffering, and that is hard to reconcile too. It's like, I don't get it. I'm doing my best and everything seems to be going great, but I can't exist in my own skin. Um, and I think that pattern, I mean, it's multifaceted how that happens in terms of I'd come into a role and, I loved tech sales. I loved the ability to solve problems with intelligent people and to get an insight into how all these different companies and teams were working and to become an expert in what we did and how that could fit in and be consultative and be helpful and and obviously the game of, I mean, it's very entrepreneurial. You got your own book and okay, awesome, and great earning potential and all this stuff. So I would say that was a big component, is that I loved it, and so there was no limit to how much I could give it. And I would pride myself on doing the things that a good rep needs to do to be successful in and out of the job. So I'm pretty dialed in. For me as a rep, it was always what I was doing outside of work was more important than what I was doing during work hours in terms of contributing to my success at work. Like um, if I'm relaxed, if I'm thinking straight, I'm getting good sleep and exercise. I'm happy in my relationship, stuff like that. I'm just gonna be a far more pleasurable, dialed in guy to work with, and that would contribute to that success a lot. But that would erode because I am going sprinting so hard at these targets and doing everything that I can from a short-sighted viewpoint. I couldn't see uh, the long term well enough because I was so focused on shooting the lights out and blowing out my quarter, especially because I'm trying to work something out in my own head. I'm trying to prove to myself and prove to these other people that I belong and be the hero, right? When it's like, well, Drew, maybe you can just be a good rep and I'm okay with that. But I needed to be the guy. And, sometimes that looked like, always that looked like most of the time not doing the other things outside of work that I needed to be doing and putting all of my eggs in that basket and eventually, of course, running out of steam. Um, and even things like, okay, let's be the hero and drag stuff out of next quarter into this one to really blow it out. But then I'm coming into next quarter and it's looking pretty barren. And then, I developed this coping mechanism of shutting down. And when all of a sudden I would feel like, things weren't going to go well and I wasn't going to be the hero. Okay, well, I'm terrified. Shut the blinds, shut down, can't do the performer anymore. And catastrophe, and that turned out, that I think that stems a lot from, I was working with a trauma therapist and we were pretty deep into the sessions and used to always have this dream where I was actually in the hallway in our elementary school. And it was just a setting. I was just looking down the hallway from my class. Didn't know why I was there. It was at night. Didn't know. But it would always come up. And I'm in a session with her and, we use Gabor Mate's technique and I'm going back, through emotional memory. And all of a sudden I'm there and I'm terrified. Like I've never felt such sheer terror and helplessness. And I re-experienced something that I can't say for sure. I don't know what happened because I don't have a conscious memory of it. But it wasn't good. And again, I don't know if it's my psyche making sense of something else and creating this experience, but I do know that the experience that I had and I think I was in a position where I couldn't fight. I couldn't flight. I was just a kid. And I froze and would shut down. And I think a combination of that, as well as the Jim Carrey thing where it's like depressed, deep rest. I can't play this avatar anymore. I can't perform this way anymore. It's too much energy. I need to rest. I think those two probably would come together and contribute to this pattern of me, shutting down, because it was usually when some sort of fear, some sort of uncertainty, some sort of like, I'm not in control, so I'm not safe, or I'm just not good enough. Probably in that pattern, more so the former. When I would feel I wasn't in control, I would shut down like that little kid. even though I was a grown man and I was safe, but that's just the way I operated. And so that then really, affected my career, because I would
Mhm.
be super on and then I would be super off. And eventually, as I was unconditioning and getting to know who I actually am, um, I came to find that the passion that I had for that world, for being a corporate success, being the tech sales guy, the passion, it sort of dripped away, and I came to the conclusion, that I can't really do this anymore, because it's not fulfilling for me. And I guess I'm just wired away that I have to to be fulfilled in what it is that I'm doing, or I'm gonna get super sick and I'll be able to do it. So that sort of ran its course. I haven't worked in tech sales for over a year now, and it's been a bit of a chunk of time that I've been trying to figure out what's next. And obviously, this trip has been a great opportunity to sort of figure out what that is. And I'm finally, it seems I'm coming to a place where I can look at what those experiences that I had were. I can look at my skills and abilities and what I'm interested in and what I'm passionate about. And that's starting to, I can narrow down what that's sort of looking like in terms of, how I can have a career, be of service to other people while being of service to myself and the people that I love, and do something that I'll be happy looking back when I leave here to say that's what I did. So that's a pretty cool place to be. I was just chopping wood and carrying water.
Man, well, I'm so excited to see what you do next, and I know it's going to be deeply grounded in wisdom and purpose, and like all of this suffering that you went through has given you an understanding of self and an understanding of your environment, and an understanding for others in a way that very, very few people have, man. Um, and there was a lot to unpack there, but one of these things that I think listeners will relate with is early on you created, it was an interesting example. You said career and corporate success were your God. That was your North Star. If my career was going well, I was seen as the success of others, like that is it. And through a series of circumstances, due to mental health and addiction, that God got stripped away from you in various ways. How did you start to rebuild a practice of faith? We have to believe in something. We have to look to something bigger. What did that look like for you to replace
Yeah,
the God of success? 'Cause I think honestly, 70% of people, if you're really true with yourself, at least high performers, success is your God.
yeah. It makes me think of this example that my buddy gives, and he says, at the end of a day, make a pie chart and break up what you were thinking about that day. Okay, 50% work, 25% family, 15% myself, 2% I need to feed the dog, whatever that is. That's what you worship, right? Everybody worships something. Everybody has faith in something, whether that might be work. And it's a faith that if I give to this and I achieve in this, it's going to reciprocate, right? And for me, I grew up in a pretty anti-religious household. I never really had any semblance um, of spirituality or really many questions about it. But it was taught to me that you're going to go to school, you're going to work really hard. Work, that was the mechanism. My dad's one of the hardest working guys that there was and is, and so he set that example, and that
God
was
bless him.
my north.
Shout out Dave
God
Hall.
bless him. The man. And So that was what I had faith in. That was what I thought was going to bring me fulfillment and success in this life. And not to, divide that at all. Those are amazing things. But honestly, it took, with my faith, um, it took losing faith in, uh, in what I held faith in, and it took losing faith in myself. To be honest, I completely bottomed out, and I got to a point where I just, and I had shown up to recovery, and where they talk about God and they talk about spirituality, and I had that sort of that wall would come up, and I got to a place where I said, "Listen, my thoughts and beliefs about God don't matter anymore, because I'm done anyways. So what do I have to lose? Sure, it seems to be working for them. What do I know? Socrates talks about, true wisdom is to know that you do not know, or that's paraphrased, but I got there, and I cracked open, and I was I was doing the work that was designed in order for one to have a spiritual awakening, if you want to call it, and crack you open to something, whatever that is, and that started to fill me up, and thus began a more intentional journey to pursue, what do you call it? Truth, source, whatever it is that makes up you and me, and the bees and the trees, and just that, conveniently, that process of less of Drew, less of Drew, and it got filled up by something, and and it's been that process of seeking out what that is, and love, and all that. And fortunately, I mean, we're so blessed, man, that we have the opportunities that we do to do the things that we do, to connect with the people that we do, and trying to solve this riddle of existence, which we never will, but we can try, and it's pretty fun, and that's obviously a big part of what we're doing over here in the birthplace of yoga. And it's it's been fun to open up Pandora's box, and realize, here comes another quote, Mark Twain. It ain't what you don't know that gets you into trouble. It's what you know for sure that just ain't so, so to have humility, to just, be seeing what's out there, and that certainly has made my life a lot richer, a lot more curious and amazing, and but also at the same time something that it's I may have put too much focus into at times, but that's just what I had to do to get where I am. That all of a sudden my career, my prior God, it was almost off the map. And yeah, but again, a big part of spirituality is working, is being useful, is showing up and contributing in the lives of your community, and your whatever opportunities you have, family, friends, work, all that, and maybe a bit of that was lost. Like, I got to a place where I thought, "Hey, love is the answer, man. Here we go," and spent perhaps a bit too much time with my head in the clouds without my feet on the ground, and but then that eventually leads to suffering that taught me, hey, you got to have those feet on the ground. You got to walk one foot in front of the other, um, and work. So,
Mhm.
but like I said, those were the lessons that I needed, and all I could do is my best to apply those, while applying the other stuff as well, that I referred to in that journey of self-understanding and understanding each other.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that's a really interesting conversation to have, and one that we have been having recently at the coffee shop where we spend our mornings down the road. And that's this idea that, one, not everyone has the luxury of, completely rejecting, modern life for a while and escaping to another part of the world where they can meditate and do yoga and, yada yada, and focus on themselves and go inward and surrender and all these beautiful, beautiful things. And you know, this idea of sort of modern spirituality really puts the onus on you as the individual. And it says, well, Drew, because of XYZ happened to you, that manifested itself in, this mental health problem. And then that led to this addiction. And it's kind of all just your set of, circumstances. And it's the way your brain's wired. And then you go on this deep, long journey as I have to try and like unpack your stories and be like, oh, hey, what is this trauma that happened? How did that inform XYZ? And that line of thinking does take the onus completely off of the society that we have co-created together, particularly in the West. And given some space, even just this small 6 months, you notice a lot of really sick things about our society. It is so performance based. Like we talked about being little performance, but all of society is set up to distract you or make you perform. And I think there is a piece. This is why I've been called to write more, and even through these podcasts. But for most of humanity's existence, we tried to build a better future, and we had an impact on what societal changes would happen. And now that is all driven, by technology in the West. And so I think people are less likely now to go out there and try and participate in society, as you mentioned, like do the work, create the companies that will make the world a better place. And I think that's a really dangerous trend. If we all go inward, that takes the outer world like off the hook, and we still have to walk around in this, meat suit for 80 to 100 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I hear you, man. And, I think the way that I look at it, and in my experience, it's that look at a tree, a baby tree, it needs a windshield first, so it can have time to get its roots in. And that's necessary. And for me, I needed to shield myself off, and being in recovery, that gave me an opportunity to be of service to a lot of people in that world, right? Where I'm contributing externally by helping guys the best that I can. But that's within that bubble, right? And that's where I needed to be, was in that bubble. But as my buddy likes to say in the rooms, life is got to live life outside the aquarium, and so I think that it is healthy at a certain point. And I think that people forget when they say you have to put your oxygen mask on first. I think they forget the first, and that implies then you put oxygen masks on others. And so for me, it's been a process of getting to know, okay, who is Drew, and reconciling and working through a lot of the stuff from the past, and things that were getting in my way, and my ability to show up for myself and to show up for others. And that's a long process that has been, for me. And but eventually that is getting me to a place where I'm inspired and ready to do the things that I believe will be helpful and impact this world out of a place of the sheer joy of it, and not out of this fear that I need to go and prove something. And I think that those are probably more what this world needs from me. And
Mhm.
I think that like anything, the pendulum often swings, right? And if even if society needs to go too far in that direction, okay, but we certainly need to swing back, because I think that the more that you go in, and the more that perhaps you experience what you are, and at least in my experiences, the more you realize that you and I are really no different, and that and how could I not be responsible for what's going on out there? I'm just as responsible as what's going on in here, and that a part of I'm at a stage at least, and feeling that way that what I'm doing out there is going to be a big part of my healing uh, inside, But we're
Mm.
all where we need to be, man. I hold that belief for because I like it or because it's true. I don't know that I mean, it's like Peter Crone talks about. We are everything is perfect, as we know, we are love, we are divine. Um, and we're in two modes. One mode is we are in lockstep with the universe. We are manifesting divinity and abundance and love here, and we can feel it, and we're experiencing that. Or we are creating and manifesting circumstances and situations that we need in order to transcend for our own evolution and growth. So those are the ones for me that, you know, that feel like that this is wrong and I'm resisting it. This isn't how it's supposed to be. And this is painful and I'm confused. And you can always connect the dots looking backwards, right? And I can see that I needed every ounce of that. I needed every mistake I've made. I needed every drink I took. I needed every bit of suffering, at least to get to where I am now and have the clarity that, and today, Scotty, in this moment, which is of course all we have, I'm in love with life. I look at myself in the mirror and I like the guy. I'd like to hang out with him. I would not have a beer with him. Um, but I don't know. What do I know?
Yeah. I love that, man. Makes me happy to hear that. And I think that was beautifully said. So I can't believe we're almost at an hour, but who cares? We got no time limit because there's a lot that I want to still get into, and there's like two parallel tracks, and I know you're really good at not trying to give like advice, but you have a lived experience, one track through dealing with severe depression and one track dealing with addiction. And, between those two, those are incredibly common and even more common in your average high performer. Talk through your own experience, and you can give it advice if you feel called to, or you can just keep it of like, hey, this is what worked for me. And we'll start with dealing with depression and trying to still lead a life. What worked, what didn't work. You said electric shock therapy. Would you recommend that? There was ketamine therapy. Do you recommend that? You tried every, prescription drug under the sun. What worked for you? What didn't? Like, I think that's really helpful. One, because a lot of people are so busy that it seems like such a monumental task. And maybe it saves, a few people from a false start that might take a lot of time and attention.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's hard because it's so individual, and there's also so much out there that is now claiming to be the solution. Right. And, I would say it's like when you're lost in the woods, the worst thing you can do is stand still. Because even if you walk a kilometer in the wrong direction, you find out at least now, you were going in the wrong direction. So doing what you can with the little time that you have in terms of what calls to you. I think intuitively that's a big thing, listening to yourself about and finding modalities that you at least don't have a huge opposition to, and then doing that to the best of your ability, finding out if it works or it doesn't for you. And then, you may need to move to something else and just do the same thing, but just to keep trying, even, when it feels like you can't. And and just doing your best, even if your best looks like you're at 5% capacity, if you give 5% that day, you've given everything that you have, because it's been a trial and error process for me, and some things I had to do I was on psych meds for 12, 13 years before realizing, okay, and before my psychiatrist telling me, listen, you're going to have to decide whether or not this is a viable solution for you. And then also once I cut that off, um, realizing, okay, well, that's, you know, I can't sit on my laurels. I have to find, or even lean in more to other stuff. So people are only going to know what works for them. Um, you know, I if they try, you have to have your own experience because there is no silver bullet that I've found. If anybody finds one, shoot it over. But um, and it's such a combination of all of these different things. We're such unique individuals, and I think that people's what works for people, and you know, in the way that they practice anything, right? You know, ritual is in the word spirituality. And I think that our own rituals and our own practices are so important and as unique as that fingerprint in terms of what we're going to benefit from. So I would say that because things can get, especially when you're deep in it, it can be so hard and crippling to make decisions. I think that the best advice that I'll give is a talk about it with somebody if you haven't. You know, that can be a hard hurdle, but somebody that you trust and just open up because the stuff festers and grows in the darkness, man. Isolation is the worst thing that you can do. Um, and so once it's super scary, but you can talk about it with somebody, then it lets a bit of air in. And a lot of the stuff that's worked for me was the stuff that I didn't think I canceled out. So that can't work. But I did it anyways. And that was like talking about it with people. But I'd be like, this is such a huge problem. Having a chat about this isn't going to do anything, but it does. And beyond that, um, looking at what's available to you and what are you willing to do? Because it's like if you pick up a workout routine and you say, okay, I'm going to go and run every day, but you hate running and you kind of like yoga, then go do yoga. Do something that you have the least resistance to, because that means you'll do it, even if it's not the best recommended, latest, shiniest thing. Doing something is better. And so perhaps taking a look at what's available to you, what's going to fit in to your schedule and your life, because if you have all these responsibilities and you have to look after kids, you're not going to drop that. You have to find something that, works within that framework. Right. And just brick by brick, bit by bit, and not trying to do everything at once as well as, as I do, but geez, here's more advice than I would like to give, but yeah, I would say something along those lines, man.
Great advice. And then the second track, because at least from the outside perspective, with addiction, you almost did find a silver bullet for you.
Mm-hmm. Almost worked,
and it doesn't
man.
work for everyone.
Almost worked.
Tell me similar. Just walk through some of the things you tried, things that worked, things that didn't work, in terms of addiction.
Yeah, I mean, certainly, 12 steps in my experience is what had the profound impact. I know that, it's not for everybody, but and doesn't claim to have a monopoly on the solution to addiction, but that's where I found the basis of my solution is checking that out. It's so much more layered than that. It's I think there's a lot of good information out there too. I think that I do like Gabor Mate resonates with me a lot in terms of his take on addiction. And I think trauma therapy, 12 steps in trauma therapy, those would be um, my two recommended avenues, at least if I was recommending them to myself.
Yeah. Gabor Mate, you haven't checked out his work, is really, really smart guy. He's mapped out a lot of things in a way that feel directionally quite accurate. He lives through any of the stuff that we're talking about. Final one within the same realm because anecdotally, at least, I think the freeze response is becoming more common amongst humans. Don't know why. Don't pretend to know why, but just amongst people, I have a lot of conversations with people trying to hold it together, doing big, crazy things, but they tell me, I'll just go away for the weekend and, I have to deal with my family and my loved ones, but all I want to do is like hide in my room. I've certainly been there. And what I've watched, at least over the course of 6 months, you seem to have a new interaction or a new response that's not freeze, even when you're not feeling great. And I will, you know, give you some flowers. You might hold the Guinness Book of World Records for the most depressed guy who still hikes to Everest Base Camp, which is incredibly impressive. It's so hard, even when your mind and your body is working well, and unfortunately during that time, your brain was not working well. It was tricking you. It was tough. But you got up at 4:30 a.m., climbed crazy mountains. Um, what do you sort of attribute that to? And even when we're just living normal life, and there's a bout of depression, like I've seen that freeze response go away. Do you think anything has shifted
Mhm.
in that for you?
I think what's shifted is I've been traveling with my best buddy and some other good friends, and I've had to do it. And
Mhm.
and that's what I've needed to be in a position where I can't isolate. I don't have my own
Mhm.
apartment I can tuck away in, and that has
Mhm.
forced me out. Just didn't have the opportunity, and that has shown me a lot. And in terms of the the falsehood in the belief that I held that there's no point in me going out there. If I go out, it's just going to be suffering, and there's going to be nothing good that comes out from it. And I can't. It's impossible. And that seemed so real and so true. And especially over this last 6 months, it's shown me um, that that's not true, and there is everything to be gained by going out there. And that it just shows you how warped your own perspective gets. And I had to stay in that warped perspective for as long as I did, I guess, because here I am. But yeah, showing up, absolutely, like doing your best. Courage is not to live without fear, but it's to persevere through it, right? And so having the courage to engage and get out there and interact with the world as much as one can is huge. Another response I think that I've finally, seen to embody is sitting with it and
Mhm.
and listening, to the emotions, to the crazy psychological lockdown that goes on, because forever I ran from it, I ran at it, I resisted it, I fought, and that only empowered it. And I had a dear friend of mine say, tell me the only way, Drew, out of the freeze is to relax out of it. And that resonated with me in the sense that here I am just constricted lying on my couch. I can't go, and I'm just like forcing myself to go out and like sprint around the seawall or something. I'm charging it, right? And not to say that didn't do me any good. I'm sure it did, but at the same time, like I've really come to this approach of it's a messenger, and if I don't listen to that messenger, it's going to get louder and louder and louder. I think you're sitting across the table at a restaurant with somebody and they're not listening. If you see it, you know, and and all of a sudden it's screaming, and my head is just screams. And so I think it's the hardest thing. Unfortunately, we've been sitting in ashrams where I've had no technology and nothing, nowhere to go other than to be with it. And then even, not having you for a bit and just happen to be entirely with it. And okay, here I am. I'm feeling, I'm listening, and kind of letting it roll over me because it's like a panic attack. It's terrifying, but it's not going to kill you. And knowing you're safe and reminding yourself you're safe and just showing up for yourself. And it's like a guest. If they come to your home with a messenger or something, and you're not going to sprint out of your door when they show up. You open the door, you welcome them in, they have a seat, you might have a little chit chat, and then they feel comfortable to tell you what they came to tell you. And I've been treating emotions and overwhelming psychological stories and fear that way. And really hard to do when you're depressed, really kind of enjoyable to do when you're not, though it does take the time to do. But that has been enormously effective and insightful and profound for me. Pretty basic thing though. Feel your feelings. Be with them, listen to them. But
basic thing, easy to say, very hard to do. I think many of us spend a good amount of time running from feelings. I know I have, but this idea of relaxing into it and giving it the time and attention it deserves, has been a big learning for me too. I think fear lives at the periphery of our vision, of our mind, and it kind of is always there. And then if you take a really good look at it and dissect it, there's something under it. It's anger. It's all these different things that you can start to unpack, all right, brother. Final question for you. If I can transport you back to 15-year-old Drew, having your first real bad depressive episodes, what are you going to tell that little guy?
Probably not much, man. Just gotta give him a big hug. Just hold him and just tell him I know, and I'm here, and it's all good. Yeah, it's not, but it is. Yeah,
I'm gonna fly in there and give him a hug too, brother. I'm gonna hijack.
Actually, bring 15-year-old Scott too. Maybe I'd cheer him up for sure.
Yeah, totally. He probably could use the hug as well.
All right, man. Well, let's wrap this thing up with a little William Butler Yeats, who said, "Think where man's glory most begins and ends. Say my glory was I had such friends." And here I'll say such a friend, because Scotty, you're a glorious guy, and I love you.
Love you too, brother. I appreciate you. Your story is incredibly inspiring, and it has been one of the greatest gifts of my life, man, is to have a friendship like we have and continue to have. And it's we're lucky, man. And I know life is the spot, but we're lucky. We're very lucky.
It can be. Yeah, totally, man.
It can also be very beautiful.
So selfish, man. Absolutely.
Cool.
Yeah, man. All right. I love you, brother. Much love to everybody out there listening.
Thank you to all the listeners who hung out with us. We'll bring Drew back at a later date. We'll make him a reoccurring guest maybe, and we'll see you all next week.